Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining our webinar. My name is Tan Razai. I'm here with Desi House today, who is going to be presenting the bulk of the webinar. I'm just going to do the intro here. We're with Nogalis. We're an Infor Alliance partner and also an Amazon AWS Web Services partner and a Microsoft partner. Our business is essentially in 3 different areas. We've been in business since 2003. And like I said, we're an Infor Alliance partner. Prior to that, we were a Lawson partner. And the bulk of our business is really providing managed service and support to Lawson customers. And in that, we provide a number of services. So that's basically essentially acting as the in-house IT staff for those customers with our technical and functional experts in the area of Cloud Suite and Lawson version 10. We even have some Lawson version 9 customers that we're still maintaining. And then some of the other Infor applications like XM and whatnot. We've shown a 40% reduction in operational costs with our services for our customers and a 98% reduction in downtime. And the staff is 100% US based, dozens of happy customers that can be a reference for you. And then the other part of our business is our consulting services. This is where we develop custom web applications for customers or do functional and technical work within the Infor products, implementations, migrating to cloud, and just about anything service-wise you can think of in that arena. And then last but not least is our APIX Lawson Data Archive product. Now, you probably have seen this, mailers about this in your inbox recently. You might have attended some of our webinars. It's a big focus for us for customers that are moving from Lawson to Cloud Suite or moving from Lawson to yet another application. And in any of those cases, you can't take any of your history with you. So what we do is we actually archive all of your Lawson application data within the APIX Cloud, and you get to have access to it using a very lightweight web front end that has tons of really great features for users and allows you to completely decommission Lawson. And that's essentially the 3 parts of our business, and you can contact me directly regarding any of those services or the application. These are some of our customers in the managed service arena. So these are customers that we're handling the day-to-day of Lawson with, and there's also customers here that are using the APIX product as well. So with that, I'm going to switch over to Desi, who's going to present to you the 8 advantages of using managed services in the Infor Cloud even with Infor Cloud products. So Desi.
Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you for being here today. As Tan mentioned, I'm going to discuss 8 of the advantages of using managed services in the cloud. There's a lot more than 8, but today we'll just cover these 8 for the interest of time. The first 3 advantages that I want to cover with you are probably the most important. And if you only take away those 3, that's reason enough for you to have managed services in the cloud. First of all, functional assistance is a highly important one. If you have a managed service provider in the cloud, they can provide functional assistance with the application itself. So managed services, not only do they know the Infor applications in and out and how everything works together and how everything is supposed to work together, but they're also working with your organization to learn and understand your processes and to be able to meet that up with the way that the application works. And this is one-on-one support with a functional resource that you would have if users have any questions or if you have some turnover. Sometimes it's difficult and not very quick to get people trained up on the application. But if you have a managed service provider on your side, then you've got someone who can assist with that training and tutoring and helping users get up to speed. And then also if users run into any issues, if a batch job isn't working, producing results that they're expecting, you've got someone who's just a phone call away who can assist with those issues and teach the user how to get the results that they're expecting. And having someone on your side like this who knows the application well and sort of lives, breathes, and eats the application frees up your analysts to handle other day-to-day tasks so that they're not having to come back to an application that they maybe don't know so well. So then they have a bit of a learning curve to try to help the user. They might have to work with Infor to try to get up to speed. And so it's more efficient to have someone on your side who already understands how things work. So an example of functional assistance issue that we had, actually, this one is an ongoing example because we have a client in higher education. They have about 1,600 users, and they bill organizations that send employees to, courses or what have you, continuing education type of things. And it is a highly, highly specialized process. And it's because the way that they use the billing and revenue system is maybe not quite the way it was intended. And we have in the past given them recommendations on how to better do this process, but that just isn't on their roadmap right now. Right now, they just need the day-to-day functionality to work. So if any piece of this process breaks, we know how the whole thing works because we work with this organization daily on this process. And so if any part of it, if a batch job is submitted with incorrect parameters or anything like that, we are able to jump in and resolve those issues very quickly because we know the entire process. And on top of that, we know how the application works. So any of these issues that arise, this is a billing and revenue type of thing. So it's going to be high priority. And we always will have this fixed within a few hours, but always within a day. And another thing to note here is, like I mentioned, this process probably is not as efficient as it could be. Not probably, it's definitely not as efficient as it could be. And we have made recommendations about how to improve that process. And that is something that we do as a managed service provider, is to really learn and understand your processes and make recommendations on how to improve them. And, we realize that it's not realistic to do that right away always. So, we make those recommendations while we continue to work with you, find pain points, and make recommendations for how to resolve those as a managed service provider. Another biggie is the frontline support. So your break fix, your technical support. This again is a scenario where we are just a phone call away. If anything breaks, if there's a priority one issue, you're going to have our entire team on the phone working through it to help you with it, and also working with Infor to get their support. And this is, like I said, even with the functional support, this is a direct one-on-one user support. So your users can pick up the phone and call us as if we are part of your own IT staff. And that's what any good managed service provider is going to give you. We have a team of people who understand and are experts on the applications that your organization is using. And it's difficult for any organization to have someone in-house who can be an expert on that application and also understand the business processes and also be able to take information to Infor and share information with them, translating what the user needs are. So that's a service that we can provide. We're able to bridge the gap between the user and Infor support. We will sit down with the users, figure out what the issue is. If we can't resolve it ourselves, which often we can, we will take all of that information, get all the information that we know Infor needs, and we'll take it to them. And even whenever they ask for us to test something or whatever, we often can get into the system and do the testing ourselves so that we're not bothering the users, so they can go on and do whatever they need to do. And we will assist Infor with troubleshooting because Infor doesn't understand fully the processes of the organization, but we do. So we're able to bridge that gap. An example of a frontline support issue that we had very recently, we had a client who was changing out their fiscal year, which is a quite complex task. And one of the batch jobs for one of the modules was not running properly. It wasn't producing the expected results. And that required a ticket with Infor, which we submitted. And it wasn't an urgent thing. We had about a week to fix it, and we were able to get it fixed within that week, working back and forth with Infor. It's important to note that if there is an issue that is causing you to not be able to do your day-to-day activities, and it's a priority one issue for your organization, in addition to escalating with Infor and really getting in and working up the chain of those technicians, we can get creative with solutions. If you need something right away and we're not able to get it in the normal way, what we do is we say, okay, where are we? And where do we need to be? And how do we get there? And if it's not through the normal channels, let's find another way to get there in the meantime while we're trying to fix the normal channels. And we will work with you to do that. And we can do that because, like I said, we make it our business to know your business. And then we already know Infor's business. Another important one is security. So I'm sure anyone on this call is aware that security can be very complex and it's extremely important. It's the front of everyone's mind all the time. And so we will work with our clients that they do periodic audits, maybe annual or quarterly audits of their security. So we will assist in auditing the security. I've mentioned before, we know all the pieces of the application. We know how the application works together. And then we normally will work closely with your users. So we know what their roles are within the organization. So we are in the best position to understand what access they truly need. And to really be secure, you need to make sure that your users only have access to what they truly need. And we are able to provide that for you. We are able to do security reporting, monitoring, making sure that you're staying within your licenses with Infor. And customizing security in Cloud Suite applications can be very complex because you use Configuration Console to edit those rules, and it is kind of its own programming language, which we already have resources on hand who understand that language, in addition to people who understand how each piece of the application works. And that's really what you need if you want your security to be robust and complete. So we had another healthcare organization recently that was using talent acquisition, and they had some very specific requirements for what their managers could see and couldn't see. They wanted to be able to see all recruits, but they only wanted them to be able to see specific parts of that process that were related to their own department. It was very complex. It took some back and forth with Infor, and it took a lot of Configuration Console work. And we actually worked with their own internal IT to assist them with these rules, and we did get it done. It took a few days, but we got them to where they needed to be so that their users were happy and management and the IT was happy. Another thing that a good managed service provider is going to give you is monitoring and proactive maintenance. It is just as important in the cloud to have this as it is for an on-premise system. What we are able to provide with this monitoring is a 98% reduction in downtime and an 80% reduction in critical tickets. Every month, what Nogalis does is we run a health check of all our client systems, on-prem and cloud. We use some of Infor's diagnostic tools, and then we also use some of our own diagnostic tools, and we synthesize all of that information for you and put it into recommendations for immediate, near-term, and long-term recommendations. And what that does is that shows you, if there's a recurring error message in a log, we're going to highlight that. And you can either open up a ticket with Infor or have us open up a ticket with Infor and kind of work to resolve that error or make sure that error is not a notice of impending doom type of thing. And in addition to that, we're always watching for patch recommendations, technology updates, critical notifications. That stuff comes out weekly, literally, and we're taking that information and we look at what is changing or what's coming out, what's new, and we figure out how that's going to impact each client. And if it's a patch, we'll say, okay, well, this patch is coming out and it doesn't necessarily benefit you in any way, so you can go ahead and wait and not take it, kind of thing. Or if there's a critical notification coming out, we'll say, yes, this does impact you and you need to be prepared for it, and let us help you test and get ready for it. If any of you are on the Infor Cloud, you know already, or you're about to know, that they release patch bundles regularly, and these things are big. They normally will touch every single application that you have. What we are able to provide as a managed service provider is we can interpret the release notes from those patch bundles, and we can kind of highlight the big things that are going to be big changes for your organization when the bundles are released, and we'll highlight that for you. We'll kind of break that down for you. We also will offer assistance with managing the testing project, and we have our own project management tool that we can use for that purpose, or we're happy to hop onto yours and assist with that. We can lead the project if you'd like, or we can take a step back and just be part of the project. We will provide generic testing scripts for these patch bundles, but also we can customize scripts for you because, like I've said before, we're working with your organization. We understand your processes, so we can take our generic scripts and make them more customized for your organization. These patch bundles, by the way, because like I said, they touch everything, and it is required that you take the patch bundle at some point. You can schedule it with Infor, but eventually you're going to have to take the patch bundle, and they are massive, and it usually requires 4 to 6 weeks of regression testing. So like I said, they touch everything, and you're basically going to need to test everything, but we are able to make sense of it, especially if there's a look and feel type change or a functionality type change for your users. We're able to interpret that for them and sit down with them and explain to them how they need to test it. And then, of course, if there's any bugs or anything, we're able to work with Infor during the testing to get that worked out. And then additionally, if you have anything customized, sometimes patching can break your configuration console changes or anything that you have customized, and we would assist with that as well. All of our cloud customers come to us for assistance with testing, but we have one specific one where we basically do almost everything. They do the actual testing, but we work very closely with the users to do the testing. We have some very strong functional resources in-house who sometimes will even do the testing. The users are so comfortable with our functional resources that they will request that they actually do the testing, and they will feel confident in those results to have our functional resource do it. But in this case, for this client, we actually have them do the testing. We just sit with them and assist, and we run the entire project for them. So we make sure everything gets checked off the list, and we let Infor know whenever they're ready to take the patch. Configuration console is sort of near and dear to my heart. I have a background as a developer, and this is like sort of one of the ways that I get to pretend like I'm writing code. So I'll try not to talk too much about this one because we only have an hour and it's not necessary. But configuration console, let me just tell you that you can do basically anything with this. So I'm sure you can understand that may be a problem because you can customize your user experience without limits, which could potentially cause issues down the road. If, there's a patch or something that breaks, there may be more points of failure, but it is important if you have any configuration console changes, it's important to have someone who really understands how configuration console works and how the applications themselves are put together, because it can get very complex and it can have some unintended consequences. So whenever we come in as a managed service provider to an organization, one of our first orders of business is to find out everything that the customer has customized in their application, and we document it. And then that documentation is yours. You take that with you going forward, because very often something will be customized in a system and there will be some turnover or years will pass and it has little to no documentation and the knowledge is just sort of lost. And then when something breaks, it's difficult to really figure out where the fix needs to happen. So that is something that we'll do for you, is make sure that is documented for you. And it's also for us, because we don't like any learning curves whenever there's an issue. We want to hit the ground running. We want to get you back in business as soon as possible. So we like to have documentation at our fingertips to be able to immediately jump in and start working on an issue right away. And then obviously, if there's anything that breaks or if there are any small tweaks that need to be done to your customizations, as a managed service provider, that's a service that we could provide for you. So this one is just one of those big bang for your buck type things. The in-process server administrator, it's maybe kind of difficult to see who has scheduled what IPA processes. You can easily see your own, but it's difficult to see a whole picture. So in the Async Administrator, I went into Configuration Console on a client site and modified that list so that I can see what is scheduled, which IPA process it is, and when it runs, all at one time, so that I'm not having to click into every schedule to figure out what this is running and when it's running. So it just makes things a lot more efficient whenever we're having to go in and figure out why something didn't run, basically, is what it boils down to. Process automation and reporting, again, speaking of IPA, it's pretty difficult for any organization not to have some kind of interface with a third party. And Infor provides ION and IPA tools to be able to accomplish those. And those are tools that that Nogalis is very well versed in. So these are customizations that we would come into your organization, we would immediately document all of them, and then things happen, right? There's maybe network outages, the third party. I mean, this happens all the time. The third party doesn't put a file where it's supposed to be at the time that we're expecting it. I had that happen with one of my clients quite frequently. And so these are the kind of things that a managed service provider who understands, all your IPAs, all your custom processes, is able to just jump right in and fix those things literally within minutes. And then in addition to processes, there's custom reports. So again, we understand these applications, we understand the data, how it all works together. And then we understand, financial reporting, HR, payroll reporting as well. So even if you bring all of your outside data and your Infor data into the data lake and use Burst to write reports, I mean, that's something that we are going to be in a great position to help you with, because we just understand how that data works and even kind of what data would be useful to your users to be able to view. I have one client who has an IPA process. And again, I know this IPA process very well because I make it my business to know these processes. And they needed just a minor tweak to it, just a real quick change. And I knew it was a quick change because I know the process. And it is well documented. So whenever they requested the change, I said, yeah, that is definitely a managed service change. That's not going to be a big project. So let me take care of that for you. Took less than 2 hours. But it's important to note that we also went through their change control process to make these changes. So any of your customizations, your IPA processes, your configuration console changes, we're not going to do those without going through change control. And if you don't have your own change control, we're going to take it through our change control, because we want everything to be transparent for you. We want you to know exactly what changes we've made and how it impacts the process going forward, so that you have that information and so that we also have that information, because again, we're going to document it. So that's important to know. And then we also obviously will help you move things into production, whether you want us to do that for you, or if you have a separation of duties and want to have someone internal do it, we will provide documentation for them on how to move things into production. So number 8, finally, the cost savings. As we mentioned, there's going to be a reduction in operational costs in your first year. There's a reduction in downtime. That's going to save costs and headache and energy. In addition to all of that, we will provide you with statistical reporting that shows you how your organization has been benefiting. So that's, ticket turnover, ticket turnaround. We can show you how our proactive maintenance has kept you from having critical issues. And in addition to all of the savings, you're going to be your organization is going to become more efficient because your analysts are going to be able to have their time focusing on tasks that align with your strategic plan, rather than having to focus on break fix type of things, or trying to figure out an application that's one of 10 applications that they're trying to support. So, the advantages here are kind of obvious. A lot of people we've noticed think, and even Infor mentioned at a user group meeting that we were at a couple weeks ago, they were mentioning that a lot of their clients think that they're going to be able to go into the cloud and they're going to set it and forget it, and they're not going to really need any maintenance or administration anymore. And they're starting to find that that's just not true. There is still administration. I mean, there's customizations. Out of the box, the Infor products are really good and robust and cover a multitude of needs, but every organization is different, as you all know, and there are going to be some customizations. There are going to be some interfaces, and that's just a reality, and those are things that happen in the cloud, on-prem, or whatever. So Infor is their clients are finding that they actually do need some assistance going forward once they do get to the cloud. So with that being said, Ann and I would love to hear from any of you if you are interested in learning more about managed services, or personally, if you have any questions at all about anything, just reach out to me. I'd love to hear from any of you, or you can give us a call at our number 844 Nogalis. And if you'd like to learn more about managed services, you can pop over to our website. The URL is right there specifically for Atlassian Managed Services. But if you just go to nogalis.com and go into the events and articles, you'll see that my team has written a lot of articles about Infor products that is sort of kind of a knowledge base. In fact, I use it as my own personal knowledge base. So that would be a good utility for you as well. Also, if you would like a quote about managed services, you can scan this QR code. It'll take you directly to a Google Doc that you can fill out that will get you a quote if you're interested. And again, we would really love to hear from you. And with that, are there any questions? I'm going to go look at the chat. Okay. I didn't really expect a whole bunch of questions because I was just gabbing the whole time. But if anybody has any questions, now is your time.
Yeah, and just a reminder, the recording will be available in about a day. We'll send you an email when it's up, and you can, if you need to review it with your teams and whatnot, you can always forward it. It'll be essentially hosted on YouTube, but it'll be on our site. And a copy of this presentation in PDF will also be on our site that you can download. We'll hang out here for a couple minutes in case anybody has questions.
Yeah, and thanks again, everyone, for attending and sticking with us to the end.
All right, well, thanks again, everybody, for joining. I'm going to stop the recording here, and hope to see you on our next webinar.